The first time the millionaire laughed, it echoed through the marble halls of his penthouse like a challenge thrown carelessly into the air, because to him, laughter was a weapon, and wealth was proof that he had earned the right to use it. And when he spotted the maid's son standing quietly near the service elevator holding a battered backpack with frayed straps, he felt that familiar itch of amusement that came whenever he believed he was about to put someone in their place. So he turned to his guests, venture capitalists, politicians, retired chess champions, and socialites swirling crystal glasses of imported champagne, and said with a smirk that sliced the room, "Why don't we let the boy play around with me?" As if the words themselves were a prank already complete. And the maid, a black woman named Ruth who had scrubbed those marble floors for 15 years without complaint, froze in place because she knew that tone, the tone that had followed jokes that were never really jokes. And her son Eli felt his stomach tighten, even as his eyes flickered toward the massive chessboard set up near the window overlooking the city, each piece carved from ivory and obsidian, worth more than most houses. And the millionaire, Victor Hale, waved a dismissive hand and added, "Relax, Ruth, it's just a game, unless you're afraid he might beat me," which triggered a ripple of laughter that felt sharp and thin, and Ruth's first instinct was to pull Eli back, to protect him from embarrassment, from cruelty disguised as entertainment. But Eli squeezed her hand gently and whispered, "It's okay, Mom," with a calm that startled her because it was the same calm he'd had at age 6 when he solved puzzles meant for adults, the same calm he'd had when he taught himself chess from a torn library book discarded behind their apartment complex, the same calm he carried like a secret shield. And so she nodded reluctantly and stepped aside as Eli approached the board, the room suddenly quieting, not out of respect but curiosity, because no one ever expected anything extraordinary from the help's children. And Victor took his seat with theatrical confidence, announcing loudly that he'd go easy, that he wouldn't embarrass the kid too badly. And Eli simply nodded and picked up the white pieces with a reverence that contrasted sharply with Victor's careless swagger, and the first moves unfolded predictably, Victor opening aggressively, explaining his strategy aloud as if teaching a lesson, while Eli responded with precise, almost invisible counters that went unnoticed at first, like a slow shift in the tide beneath a boat too heavy to feel it. And 10 minutes in, a few guests leaned forward, noticing something off, noticing that Victor's brow had furrowed, that his smile had thinned, that his queen was suddenly under threat. And Ruth watched from the doorway with her hands clasped tightly, torn between fear and a strange swelling pride she had learned to keep hidden in a world that punished confidence in people like her. And when Victor lost his first rook, he laughed too loudly and blamed distraction. But Eli's eyes never left the board, because to him, chess was not about humiliating anyone. It was about truth, about inevitability, about seeing 10 steps ahead when others barely saw one. And as the game deepened, Victor stopped narrating. The room stopped whispering, and the city skyline outside seemed to blur as if even the lights were leaning in to watch. And then came the first twist, when Victor realized, with a jolt of cold clarity, that the boy wasn't reacting to his moves. He was anticipating them, luring him into traps so elegant they felt insulting. And Victor's mind flashed back to his own childhood in private academies, to tutors, to resources, to every advantage money could buy. And yet here he was, being dismantled by a child whose shoes were worn thin at the soles. And when Eli delivered a quiet but devastating check, Victor snapped, accusing him of cheating, demanding to know who taught him. And Eli finally looked up and said softly, "No one taught me, sir. I just listened to the board." A line so simple it unsettled the room, because it carried no arrogance, only certainty. And Ruth felt tears sting her eyes as memories flooded back of nights Eli had stayed up late, studying by flickering light, of eviction notices, of choosing between food and books. And Victor stood abruptly, pacing, pride bleeding into panic, because losing was not just losing. It was exposure. And then came the second twist, when one of the guests, an elderly man with sharp eyes and trembling hands, introduced himself as a former national chess champion and asked Eli if he might play the next move. And when Eli nodded, the champion took Victor's seat and lasted exactly 7 minutes before conceding, his voice breaking as he whispered, "This child sees patterns I've spent my life chasing." And the room erupted, not with laughter this time, but with disbelief, awe, and something like shame. And Victor felt the ground shift beneath him, because the joke had turned into a mirror, reflecting not just Eli's brilliance, but Victor's cruelty. and yet pride is a stubborn thing. So Victor tried to recover by offering Eli money, scholarships, opportunities, framing generosity as if it erased humiliation. And Eli listened politely before saying, "I don't want charity. I want a chance." And those words hit harder than any checkmate, because they echoed a truth Victor had avoided his entire life. And the third twist arrived quietly later that night when Victor reviewed security footage, compelled by obsession, watching the game again and again, noticing the subtle restraint in Eli's play, the moments where he could have ended it sooner but didn't. And for the first time, Victor wondered not how much the boy knew, but how much he had held back. And the following weeks unraveled faster than anyone expected as word spread. Invitations poured in, and Eli was tested by grandmasters who walked away shaken, while Ruth was suspended from her job temporarily under the guise of protocol, only to receive an anonymous eviction notice 2 days later. A reminder that talent does not shield you from systems designed to keep you small. And when Victor learned of this, guilt clashed with fear, because helping now the government ads are deporting would mean admitting wrongdoing. And here came the final twist, the one no one saw coming, when Eli declined a televised championship match arranged by sponsors and instead stood at a podium beside his mother and said, "My genius didn't come from comfort. It came from struggle. And if you want me to play, then you must protect the people who clean your houses, raise your children, and get erased from your stories." A statement that split the media, ignited debates, and forced Victor into a decision that would define him. And in a moment that stunned everyone, Victor stepped forward, publicly apologizing, restoring Ruth's job with full benefits, funding a foundation for underprivileged prodigies, and admitting that the joke had exposed not Eli's weakness but his own emptiness. And years later, when Eli became the youngest world chess champion in history, reporters would ask about the night it all began, expecting tales of triumph. But Eli always answered the same way, saying, "It began with a laugh meant to hurt, but it ended by revealing the truth." And somewhere in the audience, Ruth would smile quietly, knowing that the real victory was never the board, but the moment the world was forced to see what had always been there.